find your uniqueness and exploit it in the service of others. Well, now with AI stepping onto the scene, there's this explosion of content, right? I mean, you can write a blog in 60 seconds. Like you can create video prompts and scripts and like so many parts of the process are going to become more and more efficient. Even the video production itself, and the video editing, but even the video production itself is not that far away. So now there's more noise happening at more speed than ever before. And what happens? It's this just giant cloud of noise. And you go, how do you break through? Well, you break through the same way as you did when I first heard Larry Winget say that quote 25 years ago. You find your uniqueness and you exploit it in the service of others. You have to create unique thinking. You have to have unique thoughts. You have to have original ideas. You have to have the ability to articulate and say something that hasn't already been said, that isn't already out there in the nomenclature. A term that I used to love and then I didn't love because it became super popular, and now I really love it again, is the term thought leader. Because at first it was like, oh yes, thought leader was like a name. It was like a name for an influencer. And then it actually became like just an influencer, not an actual thought leader. And now I think it's coming back to get noticed is going to be that you have to be a thought leader. You have to advance the thinking of what's been done, and you have to advance the nomenclature of what's been said on your topic. If you are in any way regurgitating, repackaging, reformulating, consolidating, summarizing, anything that's been out there, you are a commodity, and you're not only going to be killed by the creators, you're going to be killed by AI because it can do that faster than you. So you better have something unique. And that's the foundation and the first thing that we do with everybody at Brand Builders Group is help them figure out and find their uniqueness.
That was a lot. I want to unpack some things, and then I want to get into this framework, so how we can actually find our uniqueness. But we are fighting against noise and competition, but AI is kind of enemy number one, and is also a tool to leverage, but is exploding onto the scene a lot of average content, a lot of echoed content, a lot of thought leader-less content. That's just a lot of echo, and we don't want to be an echo, we want to be a voice. And what we want to do, you said Sheehan's wall. The important thing is to niche until you're known, until you break through the wall. If you compare yourself to Gary Vaynerchuk, he niched at the start wine only, and even his show was about wine. And with that authority,
and YouTube only in the very beginning, wine only,
and leveraged
YouTube.
it. But success in business, success with the wine shop, success with a show about wine on social media was then leveraged to social media. But once you're on the other side of Sheehan's wall, to your point, if you are passionate about the Jets, you're passionate about wine, you're passionate about social and business and NFTs and VFriends, you're in an entirely different place. And so many people are comparing. Our mutual friend John Acuff says, never compare your beginning to somebody else's middle. I think we could even add to that and say, don't imitate somebody's middle when you're at the beginning.
Yep.
You're not through Sheehan's wall yet. And if you're diluted across multiple topics, multiple platforms, multiple monetization methods, targeting multiple audiences, you are hitting against the wall. And that's probably why you're frustrated. You're not getting views, you're not growing, or it's marginal growth, but it's not breakthrough growth. So you said the goal is to find our uniqueness and exploit it in the service of others, and to actually be a thought leader. And I would love, that feels so intimidating. Like, I think before we hit the frameworks, can you speak to the mindset of how can I possibly contribute to the zeitgeist when it feels like, well, I'm looking at Rory Vaden in his career, or I'm looking at where Sean is in his career, or who I followed. How can I add to the conversation? Is it so out there? Like, there's already the best-selling authors. Like, is this accessible to somebody who's just jumping on the scene?
Oh man, I'm so glad that you asked this, because this is the biggest roadblock mentally that a lot of people have to get past. Is you go like, like, how the hell am I supposed to compete with Adam Grant or Brene Brown?
Yeah.
What am I going to say that's like smarter than Simon Sinek? Nothing. I mean,
Yes.
so it's realizing, and this is something that we didn't know this when we started the company 5 years ago. Now that we've worked with, thousands of personal brands, and we do everything one-on-one, as Sean, it's like, that's our core, is like, we're working with people one-on-one, is we discovered a shortcut for someone to help them find their uniqueness. And we identified it through pattern recognition. Was like, we did so many of these, we're like, what? There's like a theme here. And then we finally saw it when we started training our own strategists on how to help other people find their uniqueness as we started to scale the company. And the secret shortcut that we found is this: is realizing that you are always most powerfully positioned to serve the person you once were. You're most powerfully positioned to serve the person you once were. You don't have to be famous. You don't have to be the world's smartest. What the world wants from you is for you to tell the story and share the strategies for how you overcame the things that you have overcome. That's what uniqueness looks like. That's what community looks like in the future. And it's actually very tactical to get you there. You start by saying, what problem have you pushed past? What obstacle have you overcome? What challenge have you conquered? What tragedy have you triumphed over? What setback have you survived? Because nobody else in the world can talk with as much specificity and credibility for how to overcome that thing as you. And nobody can teach how to overcome it in the way that you overcome it with more credibility than you. And nobody can teach about how to overcome the thing in the way you did it with the stories and the background and who looks like you. And these things all matter, right? Like, it matters how you look. Eminem was a white rapper. It mattered how he looked. He connected with a generation because people said, "Oh, he looks like me." And so they paid, a new group paid attention.
This episode is brought to you by StreamYard. StreamYard is our go-to platform here at Think Media for live streaming to Facebook and YouTube, and for recording our video podcast. It has an incredibly easy to use interface for built-in branding, transitions, text lower thirds, and seamlessly bringing on guests. And they just added an awesome new feature called local recording. This allows you to take the quality to another level by separating out your audio and video from your guests, giving you more control over your content for later use. This feature is perfect for video and podcast creators. And so to get a special deal on StreamYard right now and to see all the features that are included, just go to streamwiththink.com. That is streamwiththink.com.
The thing that you're fighting against here is imposter syndrome. I mean, that's what to call it out, right? Is to go, well, who am I? And I call this, another way of thinking about this, Sean, is we sometimes call this the law of the frequency. And if you think about a radio station, okay, you could have two radio stations playing the exact same song at the exact same time, right? So these two stations are playing the exact same song at the same time, but an individual person can only be impacted by one of those radio stations. Why? Because you can only be tuned into one frequency at a time. And so even if you were, verbatim saying something that somebody else said, it still would be powerful because they can only hear it from you, because they only have access to you. Now, so part of your uniqueness on one hand, it's going, you can share the principles that have always been shared because they're only going to hear it from you because they only have access to you. If there's somebody listening who is like, doesn't look anything like Tony Robbins, you go, Tony Robbins could say it 100 times, but because they don't like him, they don't like his voice, they feel like he's too energetic, they go like, he's not my guy, even though he teaches that principle. Meanwhile, you go look at somebody like Brene Brown and you're like, oh, she could say the same thing, and now all of a sudden it connects. It's in a different way. Now, on the surface, that kind of looks like not uniqueness. That looks like it's the same message delivered through a unique messenger. So the messenger themselves is a part of what makes it unique, is you living into more of you. I love that Sally Hogshead talks about how the way that you differentiate yourself is not by looking at what everyone else is doing and asking, how can I be different? It's by leaning into more of who you already are. And that's what I think uniqueness looks like. It's your stories, your anecdotes, your strategies, your techniques. You know, in the part 1 of this interview, Sean, we shared the focus funnel. The focus funnel is a technique, a strategy, a framework that I created out of my head. The TED Talk went viral. You know, it's about how to multiply time. I wrote a book on it, Procrastinate on Purpose. Well, lots of people have written books about productivity. Lots of people have written books about time management. Lots of people have written books about delegation and systems, right? So it's not that I'm saying something that has never been said before. It's that I'm saying it in a way that only I can say it. And the way that I'm saying it is, if you want the focus funnel, you have to hire Rory Vaden. If you want someone to come teach that, you have to hire Rory Vaden, or you got to hire someone that has licensed that intellectual property from Rory Vaden. You can't get it anywhere else. Why? Because it's out of my freaking head, right? So and that's what matters. And I think as we enter into a world of AI, it includes both the sort of artistic component of this, and then also the practical element of going, you're creating unique frameworks and unique quotes and unique constructs and unique curriculums, not that are teaching things that have never been taught before, but that are being taught through a different set of frameworks and through a different set of lenses, through a different set of stories that is only available from you because it came out of your head. And so the first thing that we do at Brand Builders Group is we extract that knowledge out of your head and we put it into a system that can then be distributed, to the world.
If you enjoyed this podcast and are ready for some deep dive YouTube strategy, just go to thinkmasterclass.com to get access to my 1-hour on-demand YouTube strategy class. You'll be looking over my shoulder as I share my best tips, and you can watch it on demand right now at thinkmasterclass.com.